You can see an officer back there. He's alone, and they're just throwing things at him.
America, Los Angeles just descended into complete lawlessness. CNN is finally admitting it. Their own reporter is standing in the middle of an anti-ICE riot, protesters overtaking federal buildings, and zero police presence to control the mob.
Thousands of protesters here at home and across the country taking to the streets as part of a national protest over immigration enforcement arrests.
And I know that there have been arrests, and I believe they're up to about 5 arrests right now, and those arrests are for failure to disperse.
Mayor Karen Bass claimed everything was mostly peaceful. Meanwhile, her own city is being destroyed by mobs.
The National Day of Action is calling for people to stay home from work and school and refrain from shopping as a show of resistance.
So while hardworking Americans are trying to earn a living, these activists are destroying cities and claiming that it's patriotism. What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Let me show you how Karen Bass turned Los Angeles into a war zone while pretending that everything's fine, and why even CNN and the lamestream media can't cover for them anymore. Let's start with something that you hardly ever see. CNN actually holding a Democrat mayor accountable, because while Mayor Karen Bass is out here claiming the protests were peaceful, like they were doing yin yoga in the middle of the street, CNN's own reporter is describing a scene that looks like something out of a third world country.
I mean, it's just pretty incredible that these protesters have overtaken this, and there's no police. I don't see anybody here to kind of manage this crowd.
This is CNN, the network that spent years calling mostly peaceful protests while these cities are actually on fire.
Anti-ICE demonstrators clashing with officers amid a national ICE out day of protests.
They have deployed pepper balls and tear gas.
And here's what Karen Bass isn't telling you. LAPD had to call tactical alert. That means no officers were going home. Everyone stays on duty because the situation is so out of control. They need all hands on deck. But Karen Bass is out here talking about 5 arrests like it's just another Wednesday in California. Now check out what CNN's panel said about Mayor Karen Bass, because this is where it really gets good.
Karen Bass for a minute too. She said she wakes up every day worried about Donald Trump. I mean, 7,000 houses burned down and she was in Ghana last year. I think she should wake up every day trying to get those houses rebuilt. There's only been 10 that have been rebuilt. LA is a disaster.
And she wakes up every single day worried about Trump. How are you not worried about your constituents who are still homeless? Because you, Karen Bass, you failed them.
You can see an officer back there. He's alone, and they're just throwing things at him. I mean, it's just pretty incredible.
One officer alone being pelted with objects by the mob. And the CNN reporter is standing there watching it happen with absolutely zero police presence in sight. This is what happens when you have a mayor who's more concerned about Donald Trump than protecting her own constituents.
This is at the tail end of a very long day. They're cheering because they were able to push that officer back inside.
And listen to that. They're cheering. They're cheering that they forced a police officer into retreat. And they're celebrating like they won a battle. This, my friends, is not a peaceful protest. This is an insurrection. But Karen Bass will stand on the podium and tell you that it was mostly peaceful. They were doing yoga and exchanging brownie recipes, because only 5 people got arrested.
This right now is a live look of downtown LA from Air 7, and you can see the LAPD there. They are on tactical alert right now.
That's not a protest. That is an occupation. The entire intersection is shut down. Federal buildings under siege. And Karen Bass's response?
I've not heard of any damage. I've not heard of anybody that has been injured.
She hadn't heard of any damage. She hasn't heard of anybody being injured. Either Karen Bass is lying, or her staff and herself are so incompetent that they can't see what's actually going on. Or maybe it's a combination of both.
Protesters setting a dumpster on fire right outside the downtown detention center where many federal immigration detainees are being held.
So this protester is out here saying that they're fighting for immigrant communities. They're standing up against ICE, and they believe this is about protecting vulnerable people. Let me translate to what that actually means. They want zero immigration enforcement. They want anyone who crosses the border illegally to stay here permanently with zero consequences.
I grew up with people from the immigrant community. I mean, these are the people that have raised me, and it's messed up what's happening right now. It's messed up that it's been happening for so long, and I'm glad that people are starting to open their eyes up.
And here's another one saying the immigrant community raised them, and they're glad people are opening their eyes. But here's what they're not saying. They're not distinguishing between illegal and legal immigrants. They're not acknowledging that ICE is arresting people who broke the law to enter this country. They're treating all immigration enforcement as if it's some kind of human rights violation. Let me be crystal clear about something. Legal immigration built this country. My family came here legally. Your family probably came here legally. We celebrate people who follow the rules, wait their turn, and become Americans the right way. But what these protesters want to erase is the distinction between legal and illegal immigration entirely.
We don't like ICE.
Yeah, we want to be of support to our communities. We want people who are not white like us, but are going to feel safe in their homes. They're going to feel safe in their schools. They're going to feel safe in their workplaces. People are terrified.
Let me tell you what's really happening. These kids are being manipulated by activists who are telling them that ICE is coming for everybody. But ICE isn't targeting random students. They're targeting people who are here illegally and have deportation orders. If you're here legally, you have nothing to fear from ICE. But Karen Bass and these activist groups create this climate of fear to justify their open border agenda. They want you to believe that enforcing immigration law is the same as targeting innocent people. It's not. It's enforcing the law that every country, every single country in the world enforces. Now, let me go through Karen Bass's press conference line by line, because this is a masterclass on how Democrat mayors gaslight.
The overall reason for the protest today was in solidarity with Minneapolis, and that there were protests all around the country. But then, of course, I know additional people came out because they were outraged at the arrest of Don Lemon here in our own city last night.
So Bass is framing this as solidarity with Minneapolis and the outrage over Don Lemon's arrest. She's making it sound like it was a legitimate grievance protest. But here's what she's leaving out. The reason why Don Lemon got arrested. He wasn't arrested for being a reporter.
And for him to be arrested for doing his job, and for them to attempt to restrict his ability to do his job, was just an egregious misuse of our justice system.
And there she goes, defending Don Lemon like he's some kind of martyr. But here's the reality. If you're a reporter and you're physically blocking federal agents from doing their job or storming a church during worship, you did something bad.
I think the protests are extremely important, but it is equally important for these protests to be peaceful, for vandalism not to take place. That just hurts the city. That does not impact the administration.
She's saying protests need to be peaceful and that vandalism doesn't help. But here's the problem. The protests weren't peaceful. We watched the CNN footage of officers being attacked, federal buildings being vandalized, and buses being blocked. So either Bass is lying about what happened, or she's so disconnected from reality that she doesn't know what's happening in her own city.
What can happen if the protest gets violent, that is exactly what I believe this administration wants to see happen. Because then don't be surprised if the military re-enters our city.
And there it is. She's already setting up a narrative. If things get worse, it's because Trump wanted it to happen so he can send in the military. She's pre-blaming the federal government for the chaos of her policies that she created. This is the Democrat playbook. Create sanctuary cities, refuse to cooperate with ICE, let protesters turn violent, then blame Trump when he has to step in. Now, let me show you what's actually happening at the federal building while Karen Bass was claiming everything was peaceful.
People are launching debris, bottles, and other objects at federal officers at that federal building.
Federal officers had to deploy pepper balls and tear gas because protesters were launching bottles and debris at them. But according to Karen Bass, she hasn't heard anything about any violence anywhere.
Thousands strong and determined and united
in a public condemnation of the Trump administration and its immigration law enforcement operations, including deadly encounters with civilians.
And notice how the media is framing this. They're calling it a public condemnation of the Trump administration and mentioning deadly encounters with civilians. They're making it sound like ICE is out here axing people because they're just standing on a sidewalk eating a sandwich. But here's what they're not telling you. ICE agents were attacked by people resisting, and they were defending themselves.
Yes, objects were being thrown at one point in time.
And there it is. When a reporter asked if objects were being thrown, Bass finally admits it. But she spent the entire press conference downplaying the violence and claiming she hadn't heard of anything that was damaging or violent. This is how Democrat mayors operate. They minimize the chaos their policies created until they're forced to acknowledge it. Now, let me tell you about the real cost of Karen Bass's policies, because while she's out here defending protesters and attacking Trump, her own police department is being destroyed.
Oh, it puts tremendous strain. I mean, we're already struggling with the police department right now in terms of overtime costs.
So Bass finally admits that protesters put a tremendous strain on LAPD. They're already struggling with overtime costs. They're already understaffed. They don't have enough police officers, but she's still defending the protesters and refusing to crack down on violence.
We are strapped in terms of the hiring and the number of officers that we have. So this just puts an incredible burden on our city.
LAPD is strapped for officers. They can't hire enough because people don't want to work for LAPD. And every time there's protests like this, it puts an incredible burden on the department itself. But here's what Bass isn't saying. The real reason why LAPD can't hire officers is because nobody wants to be a cop in a city where a mayor won't back them up. You create an environment where officers are being attacked by mobs, where the mayor defends protesters instead of the police, and where you can't even arrest people without being accused of brutality. Why would anybody want that job? Karen Bass and her administration have created a recruitment crisis by making it clear that she values protesters over police officers.
When people protest peacefully, when you don't have to worry about officers being pelted with rocks or slingshots or any of that, that is an entirely different situation.
And there she goes again, talking about peaceful protests like that's what's actually happening. But we just watched footage of officers being pelted with rocks, federal buildings being vandalized, buses, protesters everywhere. It looks like a riot. America, Karen Bass just showed you exactly what happens when Democrat mayors prioritize ideology over public safety. She let mobs attack federal officers, vandalize buildings, and shut down entire intersections. Then stood at a podium and claimed everything was okie dokie. Even CNN can't cover for her anymore. Their own reporter stood in the middle of the chaos, describing a lone officer being attacked with no backup, protesters overtaking the federal building, and zero police presence to control the mob. And when Bass was asked about it, she claimed that she didn't hear about anything. 16,000 structures burned while she was in Ghana. Only 10 have been rebuilt. LAPD is understaffed, overworked, and stretched to the breaking point. But Bass keeps defending protesters who attack officers and calling for peaceful demonstrations that obviously never stay peaceful. This is the pattern. Democrat mayors create sanctuary cities, refuse to cooperate with federal law enforcement, let mobs run wild, then blame Trump when he has to step in. Los Angeles is showing you what happens when you elect leaders who care more about virtue signaling than protecting their own constituents. The question is whether the rest of America is paying attention. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.